Good morning, third graders. Today is Tuesday, May 12th, 2020. Today we're going to work on some writing from Unit 5, Week 4. We have 5 pages we'll be working on, beginning on page 573, and then we'll work all the way to page 577. So on this page, we're talking about poetry and revising for structure. So taking a look at the structure of the poem, looking at how it's organized. Poetry might be arranged in lines and stanzas, which we've already talked a little bit about. I'm not going to read this poem to you. I want you to go ahead and pause the video and read it to yourself, just because we have a lot of other work we'll be doing today. But what's most important after you've read this poem is to notice this blue and green, these little blurbs talking to us about how poets organize their poems. So let's read them together. This one says, how a poet structures the lines in a poem may depend on the words that rhyme. The length of the lines may create the rhyme. So depending on where those rhyming words are and how long you make those lines, it's going to change the structure of the poem. When you change the length of the lines, you might be changing where those rhyming words are. A group of lines is called a stanza. We already know that. A stanza in poetry is similar to a paragraph in a story. In poetry, the lines in the stanza may center around one image. So what that means is just how in an essay or in a story, we move on to another paragraph when we change topic or when we change direction. In a poem, each stanza might be talking about something different or kind of moving on to something similar. So grouping lines that are similar together. So your job is not to do anything right now, but when you're working on poetry, when I give you an assignment at another time, revise your poem and really be thinking about, am I using lines the way I want to? Are my lines providing a structure that makes sense when the reader reads my poem? And how have I grouped my lines into stanzas? Okay, we're going to move on to the next page. On this page, page 574, we're talking about rearranging our ideas for coherence and clarity. Let's read the directions together. To make their poems clearer, writers may rearrange ideas and poetic language to make an image more vivid or to change the rhythm or rhyme. So remember, you guys, to make an image vivid means like you can really picture this in your mind when you're reading it. We know what rhyme is. It's when we hear that same sound at the end of two words, and rhythm is the beat of the poem. Rearranged ideas might be single words, phrases, or lines. Here is how a writer added details in rearranged ideas. Okay, so we have the original right here, and then we have the rearranged poem. Let's read the original first. It says, a snake slithered down the tree. He didn't see me, but stopped to hiss. He slid away without a scene, and he had smooth green scales. So rearranged, you're going to notice that some lines or words have been removed or switched around. Some adjectives have been added. Let's read it. A slimy snake slithered down the tree. So there we go, the author added slimy. He stopped to hiss, but not at me. That sounds so much better than he didn't see me, but stopped to hiss. I really like this, especially because now we have me and tree rhyming. So line 1 and line 2 rhyme. His scales were smooth and glossy green. That was mentioned in line 4 on the original, but now that's mentioned in line 3. He slid away without a scene. So if you guys notice, the way the author rearranged this poem was so line 1 and 2 could rhyme, tree and me, and line 3 and 4 could rhyme, green and scene. So your job is to rearrange these lines, ideas, or language of this stanza to make it clearer. So there's not a right or wrong answer. The way you do this might be different than the way another classmate would do this. So I'm not going to give you the answers. I want you to pause the video and try this on your own. I'll read the poem to you, and as I'm reading, be thinking about words you could add or remove or rearrange to make this poem better. And then later on, when you're writing your own poetry and you're editing it, you are going to be doing the same thing, thinking about how can I make my own writing better. But for now, let's read this poem. A leopard frog hopped down the lane. He sings with his friends all through the night. Dark spots on his back, bright yellow and white. He stopped to croak and not complain. So a couple things I noticed. I noticed that lane and complain rhyme on line 1 and line 4, and night and white rhyme. So I don't know, you guys might have some rearranging to do, maybe some words to add in, things you want to remove or change, but it's up to you. But I do want you to do this page for practice. All right, let's move on to the next page. The next thing you'll be doing when you edit your own poem eventually, which will be next week, I have an assignment that I'll give to you closer to that date, but you're going to be editing for nouns. So we know that a noun names a person, place, or thing, and an abstract noun describes an idea or a concept. So when you think of something abstract, it's something you can't actually hear or see or taste or touch or smell. So it would be joy, the idea of being joyful, or friendship, or courage, okay? These are nouns, they're things, but you can't like physically touch them. So a singular noun names one person, place, or thing, and a plural noun names more than one person, place, or thing. So let's take a look at this chart. Forming plural nouns, it says for most nouns, add an S. So we have boat. To make it plural, we just add an S, boats. If a singular noun ends in the letters CH, SH, X, S, or SS, you add ES. So for example, the words beach and fox, to make them beaches and foxes, you need to add ES at the end. If a singular noun ends in a consonant and Y, change the Y to I and add ES. So that's my favorite rule, right? Drop the Y, add an I, add an ES. So for example, the words baby and party, to turn them into babies and parties, you drop that Y, add your I, and then you add that suffix ES to make it plural. Last but not least, irregular plural nouns are not formed in any of the usual ways. So for example, child turning into children doesn't follow a pattern. Mouse turning into mice also does not follow a pattern. That's why these words are considered irregular plural nouns, okay? So we talked about singular nouns, plural nouns, and abstract nouns, but a common noun is a noun that names any person, place, or thing. It's very similar to a proper noun, except that proper noun names a specific person, place, or thing. So for example, they need to begin with a capital letter. So someone's title, like Mr. Cho, that's his name, we need capital letters. Or a city, like the city of Dallas, which is in Texas, it needs a capital at the beginning. Or a holiday, like Labor Day. So your job is to edit this paragraph for errors with nouns and then highlight 2 abstract nouns. If you don't have a highlighter, we'll just circle them. Okay, let's get started. The paragraph reads, 4 horse are in their stables for the night. I cover them with blanket to keep them cozy and warm. My favorite horse is named Spicy. Her strength and beauty amaze me. Okay, so I noticed a couple errors. You probably did too as I was reading. Instead of 4 horse are in their stables for the night, we need to say 4 horses. So you should go ahead and add an S to horse or cross that word out and rewrite it. Should read 4 horses are in their stables for the night. I cover them with blanket to keep them cozy and warm. Blanket does not make sense. It's singular. It needs to be plural. Blankets. Okay, so all I need to do is add that S, blankets. My favorite horse is named Spicy. All right, Spicy is the horse's name. It needs to be a proper noun. Rewrite that with a capital S. And the last sentence, her strength and beauty amaze me. So there are 2 abstract nouns that we need to highlight, or with your pencil, just circle. They are strength, it's the idea of being strong, and beauty. Okay. All right, you guys, let's move on to the next page. We've got 2 pages left today, and then we're done with our work. I know this is a lot of writing. Hang in there with me. You're doing great. So basically on this page, we're talking about comparative and superlative adjectives. So, for example, I could talk about the fuzzy dog, or 5 turtles, or the first snow. So an adjective describes a noun or a pronoun. Most adjectives answer one of these questions. Like, instead of just telling you about my dog, I'd say, what kind of dog? The fuzzy dog. Instead of just saying I have turtles, how many turtles? Well, I have 5 turtles. Instead of just talking about the snow, I'd say which one? The first snow, maybe the first snow of the season in a place that snows. So most adjectives have 3 degrees of comparison. They're called positive, comparative, and superlative. So a positive adjective describes just one noun. A comparative adjective describes compares 2. And a superlative adjective compares 3 or more nouns. So for example, you see we have these root words, deep and pretty. Okay, if I'm talking about, I don't know, maybe my pool. I have a deep pool. Maybe another family member has a pool and we're comparing them. Your pool is deeper than my pool. Maybe we're comparing 3 pools. His pool is the deepest of all. So again, with the word pretty, we have pretty, prettier, prettiest. Okay, so remember, positive, it's just one, that's the root word, like deep or pretty. Comparative is when we're comparing 2 or more, like deeper, prettier. Superlative is 3 or more, deepest, prettiest. Okay. Let's go ahead and move on. Your job is to edit this paragraph by basically just filling in the blanks. You're choosing that appropriate adjective from the word bank. Okay, let's do this together. Our word bank, our adjectives are busy, yellow, larger, smallest, brighter. All right, let's read. It says, blank daffodils grow in my garden. Busy, yellow, larger, smallest, or brighter. I have a feeling it's yellow. Yellow daffodils grow in my garden. I wonder if daffodils are blank than daisies. Busy, larger, smallest, or brighter? What do you guys think? Let's go ahead and say, I wonder if daffodils are larger than daisies. The tulips have blank colors than the lilies. I'm gonna have to say brighter. The tulips have brighter colors than the lilies. I watch the blank bee as it buzzes all around. That would be busy. I watch the busy bee as it buzzes all around. Will it find the tiny flowers? The blank flowers in my garden are hidden from the sun. That would be the smallest. The smallest flowers in my garden are hidden from the sun. Okay, so remember, you should have written down yellow daffodils, larger. Then you need to write down brighter. Then you need to write down busy. And then you need to write down the adjective smallest. So remember, when you are editing your own poetry later next week, you need to double check that you have used your comparative and superlative adjectives correctly. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Your last page, we are editing for punctuation marks. You guys know what punctuation marks are, but let's go ahead and review. So a declarative and imperative sentence ends with a period. So that means I'm declaring something. I'm telling you something. It's a statement. An interrogative sentence ends with a question mark. It's almost like I'm interrogating you. I'm asking you questions. And an exclamatory sentence ends with an exclamation mark. It's when I'm exclaiming something. Okay. In addition to our periods and question marks and exclamation marks, we also have commas. That's another type of punctuation. The comma tells us to briefly pause. It separates clauses or phrases and words to help the reader understand the author's meaning. It's also used in compound sentences. So when we have 2 sentences that could be combined in one. It's also used when we're listing items in a series. And then it's also used in addresses. So here are some examples. It says, Joe decorated the dining room and Martha baked a cake. So we have 2 independent clauses that we've brought together in one sentence. So Joe decorated the dining room could be its own sentence. Martha baked a cake could also be its own sentence. So if we want to combine them, we have to use a comma and the word and. Here in the next sentence, it's a list of items in a series. I like tomatoes, carrots, and olives on my salad. And then we have an address, and we see Tulsa, Oklahoma. Oklahoma is the state, Tulsa is the city, and so we're separating that with a comma. We also are going to think about apostrophes today. Apostrophe shows possession or replaces letters in a contraction. I know you guys know about contractions. We did some work with them earlier this year. Let's go ahead and take a look at this paragraph and we'll edit it together. I'll read it to you. It says, Big Bend has tall mountains and there are many trails to hike. Some of the animals in the park include wolves, roadrunners, and deer. You'll like this great park. Write to the park to learn more. And then there's the park's address. So I've noticed a couple mistakes. I wonder if you did too. All right, let's start over. It says, Big Bend has tall mountains and there are many trails to hike. I think that sentence is fine, don't you guys? Some of the animals in the park include, wait a second, you guys, I made a mistake. That sentence is not okay. Do you know why? Let's read it again. Big Bend has tall mountains and there are many trails to hike. So Big Bend has tall mountains could be its own complete sentence. There are many trails to hike could also be its own complete sentence. So we're missing a comma. You need a comma between mountains and the word and. Good thing I caught that. All right, next sentence. Some of the animals in the park include wolves, roadrunners, and deer. So we're listing wolves, roadrunners, and deer, but we're missing a comma behind roadrunners. Go ahead and put a comma where my cursor is. You'll like this great park. So it doesn't make sense. I'm not asking, I'm telling you that you will like this great park. So instead of a question mark, I need a period, or I could be exclaiming it. It could be an exclamation point. And you'll should be a contraction for you will. So I need an apostrophe up top of this word between the letter U and L. Write to the park to learn more. P.O. Box 129, Big Bend National Park, Texas, 79834. So I need to separate Big Bend National Park and Texas. So after the word park, where my cursor is, you need a comma. Okay, you guys, that's our last page for today. Thank you for hanging in there with me. I know this was a lot of work. I really appreciate you condensing our writing work into one day. Reach out to me if you have any questions. Remember, you are welcome to work on poetry, but you do not need to work on any assigned poetry from me yet. But I will be providing you with an assignment for next week as our very last activity before the school year is up. All right, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye.